Hi folks, Florida Man here. We are one of the biggest, and probably the best, of the diplomacy YouTube channels. I am also currently publishing a lit RPG fantasy novel on Royal Road, linked in the description below. Today, we're reviewing one of diplomacy's more powerful and less talked about alliances, the German-Turkish alliance. We'll discuss how this alliance works, what the pros and cons are, how long it typically lasts, and who it typically benefits most in execution. The title of this video is based on the fact that the German-Turkish alliance is described by Wikibooks as the Russian nightmare, which sounds oh so much cooler than the German-Turkish alliance. After reviewing a number of games where Germany and Turkey allied, I now feel equipped to give you, my dear viewers, the straight dope on whether this is truly a Russian nightmare or not. The German-Turkish alliance is only very rarely an early game alliance. Although Germany and Turkey might be well advised to talk in the early game, if they have the time, they will only very rarely work together before either Germany has subdued one of its western neighbors, or Turkey has subdued one of its eastern neighbors. I think of this as a middle to late game alliance. Once Germany and Turkey have each gotten what they need to establish themselves as dangerous powers, they need a new alliance to take them to that next stage of endgame solo threat territory. With both powers significantly enhanced, hopefully, from their results in the early game, this is a potentially very hard-hitting alliance when and where it forms. And given that Germany and Turkey will only have the two common neighbors, you can probably imagine who their shared targets are most likely to be. Either Austria or Russia is going to be the primary target of attack for this alliance, and frankly, it's usually Russia, because the Juggernaut is a more common early game alliance than the Austrian-Turkish alliance. The way it works is pretty simple. Let's go and attack the guy in the middle of us. That simplicity is frequently an asset in diplomacy strategy, as I think we've seen in strategy video after strategy video. Where this is implemented, I would expect the joint attack on Russia and or Austria to be an effective maneuver by Germany and Turkey almost every single time. There are reasons why this isn't an incredibly common alliance, however. One reason is that by the middle game, if Russia and Turkey have been allied since the beginning, they are usually quite comfortable with each other, and not necessarily very interested in turning. Another reason is that where the Juggernaut forms, I find that it's typically more common for Russia to grow very quickly than for Turkey to do so. Because Italy will often be an opponent for Turkey that Russia doesn't really have to deal with, which means that after Austria is finished off, Turkey has a roadblock to overcome prior to betrayal of Russia. Unless Italy has embroiled itself in the west. But you normally can't hope for or expect that kind of luck. Further, at the same time that Turkey is typically attacking Italy, Russia will usually be attacking Germany or beginning a naval campaign to support Germany against England. In either case, Russia begins to look like a behemoth with an extraordinarily wide reach that would be inherently intimidating to attack. Germany typically will have trouble forming the Russian nightmare coalition with Turkey, either because Germany is being attacked by Russia before Turkey is ready to fight Russia, or because Turkey sees the Juggernaut alliance as overall beneficial to him at the time that Germany is ready to fight, or because Germany has been defeated in the West or is still embroiled in fighting there at the moment that Turkey has an opening. The biggest difficulty, in short, is the timing of this alliance. The East and West almost never settle their disputes simultaneously. One theater is almost always more drawn out than the other, although which that is varies quite a bit. The pros of this alliance are that it's almost universally effective against Russia or Austria, and that it could last until the endgame and bring the two participants to the brink of victory. Germany and Turkey don't need each other's centers unless they're looking for center number 18, which is a good recipe for a long-lasting alliance. The cons are that one of the powers, most frequently Germany, is usually on the defensive when the alliance forms, and therefore the other might be in a position to benefit disproportionately more, and it's very hard to plan for and actually execute this alliance snapping into position perfectly at the moment that the two powers involved would like it to. That requires the two different early zones of combat to settle their fights close enough together in time It requires France or England and Italy to not interfere. It almost requires that Germany and Turkey have arranged the diplomacy of the map perfectly to let them get their attack timed and set up perfectly. On the other hand, the Russian nightmare would probably work slightly more reliably as a defensive pact, where the two pledge that one of the two will jump on Russia as soon as the other is attacked, and then they work together. But the same issues mentioned before arise. Still, I think that if you're Turkey working in a juggernaut alliance, or you're a Germany who has quickly become unreasonably dominant in the West, it would be unwise to not at least consider entering into this alliance. It has too many advantages to ignore, since Russia and Austria sit on a big shared repository of centers, and Russia is ultimately a big long-term problem for both Germany and Turkey if allowed to continue growing. The big winners of such an alliance are Germany and Turkey, naturally. Who is a bigger winner depends on whether Germany was threatened by Russia at the time, whether Turkey subsequently becomes the board leader, and multiple similar factors. It's also always possible that Germany or Turkey gets attacked by England, France, or Italy while in the middle of disposing of the enemy here, in which case they can end up not winning at all. I would say the biggest winner is usually Turkey, because it has the advantage of being a corner power, and therefore more difficult to surprise attack. Assuming more effective diplomacy by Germany and Turkey, they are both obvious big winners here. The big loser is Russia or Austria, naturally. And I would say that Italy tends to also be a loser, because Turkey will become almost unstoppable at this point unless Germany and Italy attack him together, which will usually be difficult because England or France likely still exist as a threat in the West. Sometimes England or France will end up being perhaps the biggest winner, as they now have an excellent opportunity to backstab Germany. As I hope I've conveyed, the possibilities with this alliance are extremely tangled and hard to predict. It's worth considering, but I hope I've described why, even though I think this is a powerful, hard-hitting, game-changing alliance. The pacing and the alliance dynamics of a typical game of diplomacy don't often allow for it to form. When it does form, I think it can potentially be extremely effective. I hope you enjoyed this alliance overview. At this point, I want to thank and credit my wonderful Patreon patrons. And I also want to take a moment to shout out something else I'm doing. As I covered in my announcement video, my new story, Ruthless, Path of Conquest, is now live and available for reading on the website Royal Road. Almost the entirety of Volume 1 of my story is now posted on the website. Following the link to Royal Road in the video description, reading some of my story, Ruthless, Path of Conquest, and giving me 5 stars, along with perhaps a follow on the Royal Road website, is almost as valuable at this moment in time as literally handing me money. Although I've also launched a Patreon for the story in case you wanted to literally hand me money for it. If the story takes off well enough, my pie-in-the-sky goal is to make my living by creating stuff. If it wasn't obvious, this would also be very good in terms of its effect on my likelihood of taking on new and interesting creative projects, some of which might be of interest to you. Until next time, Florida Man, out.